So, and I told Kathy, I invited Kathy, but I told her that she did not need to come if she felt that would make her uncomfortable if she'd already rescheduled. So I'm just going to send around a sign-in sheet, and Matt's going to take some just sketchy minutes of what we talked about today.
Very sketchy and informal.
Very sketchy and informal. So this is not an official meeting in the sense that we were not able to post an agenda, although there was an agenda in draft form. It would have been posted on Monday or Tuesday, and that's when the cancellation occurred. So that's what went down.
Is there a public comment or a?
Well, because this is not an official meeting, I think we can just have an informal discussion. But I thought I would begin by saying why the meeting was canceled, and I'll just to share that with you. First of all, I wasn't consulted about canceling the meeting, and it was simply canceled, and I apparently received the email that everybody else did. Though I didn't get the email because something is a little fishy about my email. So that's probably an unrelated issue. So anyway, so I did finally manage to meet with Dr. Bell, and he insisted that he had tried to call me over the weekend, but had the wrong number.
There's no answer.
Which I believe is true, strangely enough. And so, because we have spoken before on the weekend, and that's so it was some kind of snafu there. Anyway, we did not get to speak until yesterday, and when I finally, I did decide just to confront him face to face. He said that he canceled the meeting, and he regretted it immediately, but he canceled the meeting because he felt that during our last meeting, we were unable to get anything done. Because there was so much public comment and so much participation from outside the actual committee that we weren't able to make any progress. And so yeah, the look on my face said I don't understand what that means. It's in a kind of an irrational position. But he felt that we couldn't really have a fruitful meeting today under whatever circumstances exist outside of this room and accomplish anything, so he canceled it.
And why don't we cancel all future meetings?
Well,
No.
the reason we don't want to do that is because the Board of Trustees is more than happy to make the calendar for us.
Right.
And so this is where the conversation went, and I won't touch on everything we said, but the thing that did strike me was that Dr. Bell, who admitted that he was just beginning to really learn how things work around here, as we all know, that it's challenging, but he did not understand, despite what we have been saying, that the Board of Trustees does not handle it. And he says, well, what did you do in the past? And I said, well, we've always made the calendar. We've always, usually we've rolled over the calendar from the previous year, and when we went through any kind of change, it was a process that was arduous, that involved a lot of research and collating and study. And it still didn't quite sink in that the Board of Trustees does not hand us the calendar, that it doesn't originate, that it never originates with the board. So I think I finally got through that. That's not how we operate. So that when we've been handed a calendar, it is perceived as an imposition. That I think Dr. Bell didn't quite understand. So when we argue about the calendar in here, it wasn't clicking for him exactly why that was, why we were so opposed to a calendar.
I think we reiterated that we did not approve the change calendar, that we were not approving the calendar that we brought to the table. I think that we said it many ways.
I think we've said it many ways, and I personally said it to the Board of Trustees. So, being heard and saying something and being heard are two different things. It takes a lot to get there. So that's where I think there was a feeling of frustration on his part. I really shouldn't speak for him. He owes everybody that explanation himself. But we did talk about it, and I did say that we were going to have a meeting, and he thought it was a good idea that we had a meeting, and that we talked about it. And so he feels that we need to accomplish the completion of the calendar, of a calendar, or maybe several versions of a calendar, and that those dates need to be set, and that this committee needs to be able to do that.
Just a question. Who posts the actual physical agenda?
Well, it would usually be posted by Kathy Garvey, who would be, she's support for this committee.
And so then the instruction to post to Kathy comes from you or from Dr. Bell? Okay. So, because I guess my concern is that if we end up in a situation where agendas continue not to be posted and we continue to have informal meetings, is anything actually going to get through from this group up to the Board of Trustees without there being an argument of, well, the process was incorrect because you didn't follow the procedures right?
Well, it won't happen again.
Okay.
because it happened this time. It won't happen again.
That's
Because
fine.
if I had known this was going to happen, I would have circumvented it, and it wouldn't have happened, or I could have posted an agenda. You know, I mean, I'm the academic senate appointed co-chair of this committee, and I don't have complete authority, and I would never, not consult with my co-chair about any of these matters. But apparently that isn't felt on the other side.
But Dr. Bill doesn't feel that he needs to consult with you.
I think he does now. I think he does now, but there was some frustration that occurred over the weekend, and I wasn't privy to that.
Can a meeting be scheduled for tomorrow?
The agenda needs to be posted 72
Yeah.
24 hours.
24 hours for special.
Well, this committee has a monthly meeting. That's what everybody is committed to and has made their schedules around. If we want to discuss the possibility of a different meeting schedule, that's something for the committee to discuss.
And again, there's 24 hours notice. The committee meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
No, we can't.
That's not much, right?
For a special meeting?
Special meeting.
It's 24 hours.
I can bring it to section ground if you like.
I think this is the thing, is that the council committee agrees to a regular meeting schedule, but that doesn't prevent the committee from deciding that it wants to hold special meetings in special circumstances, either because there needs to be a change in time, or because there's something that came up that wouldn't normally have fallen within your regular schedule. So there are ways that you can do it outside of a regular meeting schedule. It depends then on whether or not the group wants to commit to attending the special.
Well, at this point, I don't know how the committee feels about it, or whether we feel that we have an emergency situation.
Well, I have a class at 1:20 tomorrow.
That kind of, yeah.
Kind of gets in the way a little bit.
Well, to put our 2014 calendar in, doesn't that have to be done by May or something?
We usually
sometimes just go to the board in June and then have to immediately go to the chancellor's office. We're actually a year behind because they took our calendar away. I think, one, we need to restore shared governance, and two, we need the dates that come down from the chancellor's office and the automatic holidays, and we develop our own calendar.
Well, we already
I
have.
mean, we have the skeleton there.
We already have we already have our calendars that we can work from.
Yeah, I know, but this
And
year,
that's what we
I
were
don't think we
planning
have
to do.
that memo from the chancellor's office that tells us the date of the certain holidays when we have to use them.
Yeah, like Cesar Chavez is optional.
No.
No,
It's
we
not
have-
optional.
Yeah, it is.
No. We just
It
got
was
a
last
message.
month.
We had to change it.
Just got it?
I think it was
Because a lot of
before
schools don't
Kathy
have
came
it.
back, we had to change it on the calendar. Unless it falls on a weekend, it has to be on the day.
Well, anyway, these are the nuts and bolts of our calendar work, and that's what we normally would do in the committee. And I think that's what Dr. Bell felt we were unable to do, because we were arguing about shared governance issues, and we were not able to actually complete our task.
I don't think we were arguing about shared governance. I think we have a very clear idea of what is shared governance. I think the administration really doesn't understand it at all, or they don't care, or they don't want to.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that we're having this meeting right now is an enormous statement, and that we've made our point. So Roger, do you want to?
Well, I just wanted to ask, first of all, do both co-chairs have to be at a meeting?
No.
No.
Okay, so number two, it was a violation of shared governance if one co-chair canceled the meeting without consulting. That seems
Yes.
right. But I just want to say, too, I want to feedback on what this is an enormous day. I want, I can say things because I'm not on the committee, but the associate students are to be absolutely commended. I've been here 33 years. I have never seen this happen from the students before like this. I have never seen, such a courageous and eloquently written statement. And I know that it's also going to be presented formally at the Board of Trustees meeting the Wednesday we return. And I do think every single one of us on this campus should support the student effort on this.
And can I touch on that for a second? Because the problem that the Associated Students has, and I've said it at various committees, I've said it at the Academic Senate, I've said it all over the places, that we rely on the cooperation and the institutional cooperation of the other constituent groups for AS's voice to be heard. We don't have a lot of the other options available to us. We don't have PERB. We don't have a union. We don't have these extra steps. And if we would take those extra steps, in theory, it is possible for an AS to sue a district. But that essentially cuts off the AS completely from the rest of the college, because now we're saying we're a separate entity, we are denied resources, we're denied office space, we're denied all of these things. So we did kind of go out on a very large list, and it's going to be very easy for administration now, because we still have things that we need to do for students, to say, you know what, we're just going to cut you off. Because frankly, that's probably what I would do if I was, Dr. Rocha. I'm not sure we'd be here if I was, but so what Associated Students need is that if the group and each constituent group really does feel like that they agree and that they have this much of an issue with shared governance as we do, because you guys get it better than us, please, I would hope that we get that kind of support from your groups, your institution, not just individually, because otherwise it's going to be very easy for AS to be sequestered from the rest of the college and isolated. And that's the biggest fear, and that's probably what's prevented ASs from doing this before, is because it's made very clear to us what happens when we do. But we were at the point where we had no choice.
Well, sing my old song that includes the top and the bottom. No one has a job here save for the students. The only reason anybody is working here is for the students. So if we don't support the students, the institution's gone.
Is it possible that Dr. Bell mistakenly thought he was able to cancel the meeting, but the meeting could not be canceled by him? So this meeting isn't canceled?
Just to speak.
Once you do this, when you have an agenda on the wall and you let go, you cannot cancel the meeting.
We'd have an agenda posted.
Well, are you an ad hoc committee of less than
Yeah, it was
half?
canceled right before the posting of the agenda.
It's a standing group.
Okay. Well, you can't have a regular scheduled meeting, you can't cancel it. If a quorum shows up, a quorum shows up.
And we did.
And so there's a quorum, and that's the will of the body, you should have a quorum. That's the minimum standard. So one person can't just cancel meetings.
But that requires that something had been posted, right?
That's a Brown Act committee, I believe, so.
Yeah, I would argue on the error of caution.
We don't have an agenda, so that's the
So
gray area.
the thing then that I would bring up is, it's Dr. Bell's sole responsibility to post the agenda?
No, we created an agenda. The committee submits to an agenda, and then the agenda is usually posted by our secretary.
Was the secretary directed not to post the agenda? So then it would be within the purview of the Brown Act to have a meeting for non-substantive issues, since shared governance is sort of outside of this committee's body, that was non-substantive, and directing the secretary to post an agenda, or directing Dr. Bell to direct the secretary to post the agenda, would be something that's non-substantive that you could do as a body. Because you're basically demanding that a meeting be held. Because otherwise you're at the will of your secretary or Dr. Bell, I'm not sure how you're structured, to have a meeting at all.
Well, we're not really at their will. It's just that there was this event occurred, and I wasn't involved. I could easily have posted an agenda myself if I knew this was going to happen. But
He's right. No, I think, again, going back to, you have a quorum.
Can you clarify what you mean, Eloy? He's right, can you say it?
He's right in terms of the discussion between the chairs. One chair canceling a meeting that was scheduled. The problem of not having an agenda posted is the problem, because then actions can't be taken that are binding per se. However, a quorum showed up. I think it would be very important in terms of record keeping that this committee makes a statement, because you do have a quorum, on the behavior of the chair, to document that there has been something officially undermined, because the committee did show up, and if the quorum chooses to make an official statement on the calendar committee, not going through the process, because if we are on a clock of May, and we are in March, April, May. That's 3 meetings if you stay with the traditional structure of 1 a month. So we've lost 1, which means if, again, we want winter back, or we want these things, this committee as a quorum, regardless of the administrative attendance, needs to make a statement that this meeting did come to some conclusion in terms of, this is what was important to us, this is why we met, even though the other chair didn't show up. So there's a clear statement, I think, from the committee saying that this meeting was canceled, we showed up anyway. So we do have a problem without the agenda being posted, because it makes it harder, but it does not make it harder to make a statement saying what the committee and the chair, who is here, that says this is what we want to happen, this is what we wanted to happen today, regardless of we have to have some. I feel, not being part of the committee, if I was, I would like a statement from the committee clearly articulating why this meeting was held anyway, and what this means in terms of shared governance and everything else. So it's a clear statement. So they just can't say, hey, well, Dr. Bell canceled it, sorry there was a miscommunication, hope you had a nice lunch. No. This is what this meeting meant, even though the chair wasn't here.
Yes, I think that's a very good suggestion.
What was going to be on the agenda for today?
Just the 2 calendars, the one with winter, the one without winter, which Lockwood asked to be put on the agenda.
I would like us to start discussing it, because given our experience last year, if we don't start, we know what's going to happen.
You know, I'm going to agree, and I would like to ask that we deviate from the schedule and put a meeting for March 14th.
I'm unsure about this, but if there was a motion made at a previous meeting to discuss a specific item at this meeting, that could be considered notice.
I don't think it was. I think it was just submitted
Just
to
a
the chair.
suggestion.
Yeah, it was submitted.
Sorry.
March 14th.
Yes. Should be a Thursday.
Oh, it is.
It's a Thursday after
It's not Friday.
And I have an extra question.
Sounds about right.
So
Is lunch 12 to 1?
I don't know what this is.
3.14.
Presentation, I think, during classes, and we don't have classes until 12 to 1.
Was there,
You shouldn't have to present.
was there suggestion for?
Then, if you were supposed to.
no reason was given and no
Yeah, I think we're
suggestion.
doing CS.
So Simon has made a motion, basically, that
Yes.
we're doing, that we schedule our next meeting for March 14th.
It's a Thursday, right?
That is a Thursday.
2 weeks.
It's a Thursday after, it's 2 weeks from today.
And I just want to clarify, that is something we can do under the Brown Act without an agenda, correct?
Yes, and I'd also, you might want to change your motion to specify who posts the agenda, so there's no confusion if 8 people post.
And that be posted by the chair.
Yeah. So
Which one?
The faculty chair.
Well, we will include Dr. Bell
Of course.
in the process as well.
Can I ask, though, that if a very major Board of Trustees meeting will be on the 15th, also for your information, our faculty...
The day before.
So, okay, I'm sorry.
It's
So, the meeting you're calling for is the Tuesday we return?
No,
Thursday.
I'm just trying to keep with the day schedule.
Thursday
and
the
conflict,
13th is
but-
the
Just to give you
DOT
a
and the
sense of
third.
the overall the faculty association will be in very intense mediation the day of the board meeting, which is
Wednesday the 13th.
Thank you. And so if you have met the day before on Tuesday at noon, it would give us a little more to bring to the table. And it would also, it seems to me, strengthen your hand when you make a presentation, as I hope you would, to the board meeting the day following at the board meeting in the evening.
Well, maybe we committee members can have a show of hands. How many of us are available on Tuesday? How many of us are available on Thursday? Well, the Tuesday. How many of us are available on Tuesday? And Thursday? Seems like everybody is.
It's for both days.
It might be easier to see who's not available.
Then I'm open to the
Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday's fine. Change your...
Yeah, I'll accept the change to the motion. Tuesday.
All right. Somebody like to second that?
I will. Second.
It doesn't matter. Okay. Do we want to vote? Do we need to vote on that? We just raise our hand.
Well, that was availability.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? All right then. Tuesday, the 12th. I will see if we can get this room. If not, we will use the classroom.
Yes. This time of day shouldn't be hard.
Comment? Sorry, Lauren.
Thank you. I am not a member of this committee, but I wholeheartedly support what has come out of this committee. I feel like this is a very important place for all of us to be, and that's why I am here today, to let you know that while I'm not a committee member, I'm representing quite a few faculty members that want to show their support for what you're doing and to say thank you. In return, it's really important for me to also support AS, and one of the ways that I feel that this committee could potentially do that, I understand it's just a straw vote, but I'd like to take a straw vote, if at all possible, on the proposed calendars. And I'd like to have that moved forward to support whatever this decision may be. Can we do that? Can we just see what this...
I would say, I'd argue no, only on the basis that when we would then come to an actual vote on it as or as an agenda item, it could be seen as having affected that decision. And so, because we discussed amongst ourselves outside of an agenda already, even though there are public present, we've done that kind of serial communication just as a group-ish. So I would...
Even though this is a formal committee meeting?
Maybe they would close their eyes.
It's not. We don't have an agenda. That's the
They
problem.
wouldn't be influencing each other's...
If we had the agenda, we
What
could do
you're
it.
asking for?
I think it would just be important when we take all of this information to the board. Ultimately, when we go to the board on the 13th, we have a tremendous amount of information. Is that correct? We've got what's going on here. We have what's going on with union negotiations, not just faculty, but others as well. We have the issue of a vote of no confidence from AS. We have something that's coming out from this amazing ad hoc committee, whoever they are. We love them. I mean, the more momentum to me, I think that's really important. And I'm wondering if we could just take some sort of unofficial vote to show that those of you on this committee are ultimately in favor or not of bringing back the winter.
The
Well,
one
we've
thing
already
is, though,
done that.
now that they
We
agreed
did
to have a
that already
meeting
the last
on
meeting.
Tuesday, they're going to have a vote probably before the board meeting anyway.
Yeah, and we
So,
did that at the last meeting, and they had everybody except one voted to bring back winter.
Can I,
Go ahead, Bill.
seems to me we did make one decision relative to the calendar last meeting, and that was to establish the start date.
Yeah.
We did.
And that was all.
Success.
And that was all.
That's right.
That was all.
Right.
And so the issue of whether to reestablish winter session was certainly on the table, and that's why we refused to go any farther with the imposed calendar. Then Dr. Bell said we had to have a date for start of fall. And we did okay that, but that's all we did.
I have a question on that note. What would have happened if we didn't do that? If we didn't decide the start date for the fall semester, what would have happened?
They could impose that, in other words, whatever he needs it for the computers or whatever. But they can't then say that was approved by a shared governance group when they talk to the board. And that would be my understanding anyway.
It was based on the banner needed.
I know it was based on the banner system, but so it would have essentially happened anyway.
Yeah, but it's a big difference between things happening and things going through shared governance, because when if you ever go to a board meeting, the president always stresses, this has been through all the constituents, it's been through shared governance, everybody's on board with this when he communicates stuff to them. And this is the type of meeting where you can not allow him to say that, or if he's saying that, he can be caught in a lie. It's another.
Right, so it's a paper trail of ammunition.
It's very important to document what you're doing, because what happens, I agree with what Lauren's saying. However, piling on doesn't make it look good. Stay with procedure. Point out what Dr. Bell did. Make sure that we're keeping straight with what's going on. The fires are coming, right? And they're going to be unable to put out fires. But staying on procedure, staying on what's important. If you take a step that might seem iffy, it will seem like it was wrong. So that's why just stick with what's going on. They're making mistakes, and if you continue to just document them, show them, so they can't come back at saying that we did something wrong or you did something wrong. It's very important to stay disciplined in that. Even though I'd love to have vote and have one.
That's good. Thank you.
That's going to come.
So, given that there's no agenda and there cannot be any decisions made today, I'm not on the committee either, and I'm totally supportive of what you guys have done. I am so grateful to the students for having the courage that you've had. It just warms my heart. It's just wonderful. And I think that's something concrete that could be done today, because I just asked Krista, did Dr. Bell give a reason for the cancellation? No, he did not. Did he give an alternate date? So what is this all about? Why has this action been taken? And I think in terms of documentation, it would be very useful, I found in my experience administratively, that you write a letter coming from the committee, a statement that goes to a number of people, CC'd, to whoever is deemed that, would benefit from seeing this, and then present that at the board, that the committee has a formal declaration of, sort of surprise and sort of shock and awe. At the cancellation of the meeting, there was no reason given. It's sort of breaking with the timeline that you're under pressure for, and having that be a document that is there for part of the pipeline and what is presented at the board.
I don't know if this is the right word, but it seemed that Dr. Bell acted illegally.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or at least not within procedure.
Well, in honoring true shared governance, even today, if we had a vote, I would not feel comfortable voting until I went back to my constituents, until I went back to the Senate, until we did. I know there was a lot of controversy over that week off, but we did do a survey. We surveyed everybody. We got everybody's input. I think I'm pretty comfortable speaking for most of my colleagues, but it's not appropriate in shared governments for me to say, okay, no on this calendar, without going back and having their say and having everyone say. Maybe we should institute some kind of survey. Do you want winter? What is your pleasure, like we did before? Because
we have
true
done
government
that.
includes everyone.
And the FA did that. So
they did.
Yeah, we have had 2 surveys out, and they've both been presented to the board. So I don't think the board has read them.
That I'm aware of. I've never seen anything.
I'll be honest. Especially just as one of the things that I will at least at bare minimum we should do is whenever we go to these, I feel like there is always an extra step missing from the shared governance process in general, where we come to the committee, understanding that we're representatives, but oftentimes we're being asked to take a vote on something without even going back to our representative board at the point.
At least the board.
Because at least then I would want, and this was the big issue I had, is that I was never given an opportunity to take the calendar in front of my executive board, because it was never given to me, to then say, okay, this is the proposed change, how do we feel? Even if that step had happened, I would have felt a lot more comfortable with the process. And so that element of being able to go back to my board, because there is an element...
And we talked about the calendar.
If I did get this done, he means disagree with.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
No.
Perhaps I could, since these things are generated within our office, I could perhaps get us develop one with the winter.
Well, we already had it. We just disappeared. I have a document at home.
It was removed from the agenda for last meeting. It was requested for the agenda for the last meeting, and then he and I had a discussion about that, and I said I wanted it, and he said he didn't want it, and we ended up with not having it at that meeting. then Lockness put the request in for the winter calendar on this agenda. And it was on the agenda that I had the draft of the agenda. So it seems to me quite obvious that the administration is not willing to engage this issue in the shared governance committee meeting that we are holding.
Did you send a request to me for one with winter?
Did I send the request?
No, would you?
Would I send the request?
Send a request to me.
For the calendar.
With the winter show.
And you'll get a draft ready.
Oh.
Yeah, they're down in our office.
Okay. I have it. I mean, we all have it. But you want it again?
We had it last calendar, or last school year.
Yeah,
Right, we don't have one for the
But not for
2014.
Yeah.
After summer, everything changed.
I have an updated one.
Since ultimately, or at least partially, the calendar is a negotiable item, and the winter intersession cancellation for last year is in dispute and under discussion. To come up with a new calendar, although I'm in favor of with the winter intersession, seems to me to be a little bit problematic.
Oh, why?
Well, because it's a negotiable item, and we haven't even finished negotiating the first one.
Student calendar, this was my point in one of the resolutions, actually, you entitled it a student calendar now, which doesn't mean it needs negotiation, but it damn well means it needs to go through the shared governance process.
Well, I'm in favor, I'm not against it.
But my point is that when because I consistently tried to bring the calendar last year, when I was just the lowly Chief Justice, to the calendar committee for review, and I was denied on the basis that it was a negotiable item. Then as soon as they stopped it being a negotiable item, as far as I'm concerned, the administration let go of it as a negotiable item, and then it fell under our 9 and 10+1 responsibilities, under our classified responsibilities, management responsibilities for shared governance versus negotiation. So they waived that right as far as I'm concerned, to then say it's negotiable.
One last thing on that is that if it is about work days, then it becomes a negotiable item. So because of its existence as a student calendar, it's not about the work days, it's about when the students are going to be on campus. That's the purpose decision that was cited in the Board of Justice.
They forfeited their power, which strengthens you guys at the table in terms of being able to make that decision. So Bell not being here and having a chair, if you do it correctly, you can get it to the point where they can't not have it. And that's what is important in terms of what you're doing.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean can't not have.
Well, they have made it a student calendar, which means that it's not a negotiable item, which is what this committee is about. And if you can work the committee the way you're going, whatever you're going to bring it up, you have to get it on the table. And if the chairs are able to bring that calendar to the table, then that's what you would be deciding on. It would not be a negotiable item. It would be what you decide in terms of shared governance.
I have to go in the next 3 minutes, just so you know. I believe she has to go to class as well.
So we'll see in a couple weeks.
Just real quickly, actually, I would disagree with you. If anything you do in this meeting to determine what you want in terms of shared governance, the FA is absolutely committed to backing and supporting.
I wasn't saying that
Right.
you weren't, but I was just I just had a question.
Right, and this sort of switch to the student calendar as a way of breaking our contract is illegal. Now, our per date is probably going to be summer 2014. So, we can wait on that, and we will pursue that. But we really feel that the kind of shared governance outrage of various no confidence votes, as well as deliberations at this table, are absolutely vital to showing the board in particular. Because I don't think Dr. Rocha really does listen. But the board have elections coming up, a number of them, and it's very important for all of us to be on the same page, basically. And so that means, yes, developing consensus, and maybe it means, as Simon was saying, can't quite sort out this particular new meeting, but we have one coming up again. And it's just very important for the FA to completely support shared governance processes. I would say that's our #1 job, aside from things like this.
Just a point of clarification. In other words, the Faculty Association suit about the cancellation of last minute will not affect our ability to put forward a calendar with the winter session.
Correct.
So can I just ask then, since I know we're going to start having to wind up, college hours are almost over, if that request to Haroldine goes out and we can get a draft over perhaps even as soon as possible, get it in front of our constituent groups. I know spring break's going to get in the way, but as best as we can, get it in front of our respective groups. So then when we come on the 12th, we're armed with the ability to actually move forward on the 13th with a recommendation to the board. So I'll also say that our shared governance responsibilities aren't to the president or to the executive committee, they're to the government. And that's, so that would be my suggestion on actually moving forward. Get a draft of both calendars, get it to the constituent groups, have them find some way to look at it, and then come back with at least feedback. I know. Yeah. That's why I said as best we can.
But you can send
Well,
those.
we can email by spring. Can we get an electronic copy?
Yeah, I have one, and I think I have one.
I mean, I can scan in the one I have at home.
But is that one for 13, 14?
It was for, I checked the other day. It was for 13, 14. It was what we were talking about at the end of the last school year. It was the calendar on which we decided to have October 1st be the professional development day.
Well, that's this day, October 1st.
I know, but we
Okay, we'll
voted
give it to
for
us.
that.
But that doesn't have any.
But I'm asking for us to get us both, so that we have everything.
I don't know when to bring this up and to whom, but I requested data from IPRO about student success rates during years when there was a winter and during years when there wasn't a winter. And what I found, she gave it to me the next day. 20 years of data the next day. And so I've had data for 10 years before and 10 years after, and winter was apparently implemented in the beginning of 2004. And there's a minor difference in success rates, but when you kind of adjust for inflation, so to speak, about 1,800 more students per semester pass their classes after the inception of a winter session. Not only that, when you combine the summer one and the summer two, and summer two was generally less well attended, the overall number of students that took summer classes was something about 20,000. And when you count summer and winter, that number is closer to 25,000.
Were they less attended because we didn't offer much?
I don't know.
Right.
Now I don't want to say that this happened because of winter. Other things could have happened, of course.
Right.
But more students passed at higher rates, and retention. And winter and summer generally have retention and success rates that are about 90 and 80 respectively. They're the two most successful terms.
Can I ask for a spring to spring comparison? Because what I've heard anecdotally is that the spring semester this year has had a higher retention than it has been, and it's only anecdotal, that has had higher retention this year than it has the last year. So then I would like to see sort of whether or not the winter break is affecting spring retention, because if it is, that's something to consider.
Spring 2012, retention 87%, success 72. Spring 2011, 85.7% and 70.7. It's a difference of 1 to 2%.
What about when before the calendar was changed? So from say 2003, 4 to 2003.
About a 3% difference.
Higher or lower?
Lower when there was no winter.
Lower when there was no
higher
winter.
Success rate for all terms on average after winter was
I just want to say, during negotiations, we were told the absolute opposite, and repeatedly asked for the data, and they claimed they couldn't produce it or whatever. So if you could send that data, I would like to see that data.
Yeah, I called up Crystal Colross, asked her for the request, and she emailed it to me the next day.
So can you email it to Krista, so that Krista could then get it out to some of us, because I want to look at it and be able to use it at the next. Yes.
Terrific. That's great. Pat?
Well, that was also at that meeting last fall with the board of trustees. one of the rationale that was given for counting the winners was the board was going to have
Yes.
great data, and that was that was the reason that was given.
I actually just about the most excited for that.
Well, it was really to digestible report format.
Yeah, AS can work on that.
Yeah.
I'll put it into a nice more report and summarize it, and I'll include all of it. I have all the raw numbers. They did a good job on it.
The only calendar available is in the email. Does that
You have the
same
numbers
data?
too. Okay,
Oh my
great. Well, all of this is great, and you know, is anyone in this room a member of the Academic Senate Calendar Committee? Did that happen?
Oh, that hasn't happened yet.
Okay, because that's a committee where, I mean,
I intend to
where this
be.
information can really be.
It doesn't exist yet.
It doesn't.
Can I just ask, Krista, was your concern about spring break?
When membership was not appointed.
Well, what Simon said
They
is that we would have to get feedback
Membership.
from our division, and that's not going to happen right now.
Are you saying it's not going to happen because people aren't available, or are you concerned about the legal sort of issue?
Just before the meeting ends.
Kelly,
Hello? Just super quick, just before the meeting ends, if there's going to be a big board meeting on the 13th, and this would probably need to be worked on and then maybe signed at the meeting on the 12th, is there going to be a statement about what happened? Because if there's a large board meeting and we're making a lot of announcements at that meeting, it would be a great idea to invite the press. If we do invite the press, it'd be great to have a packet. If we have a packet, it'd be great to have a statement about what happened today. So I'm just wondering if that suggestion is going to happen. Well, somehow we'll fling the press and throw it away.
Just one thing I do, the calendar, I don't know how many of you are aware, and thank you, Len, for bringing it up. Dr. Bell at the last but one Associated Students meeting announced that Summer 1 no longer really exists. It is now Spring 2.
Well, it's Summer 1, but I know what you mean.
You're right, so the Summer 1 block.
Yeah, I know what you mean, the first half of summer session.
But now it doesn't exist. Now it is Spring 2.
Right.
And so Spring 2 will start May 2nd.
Huh?
Right. May Spring will start. Hang on.
What?
In order
Yeah, but
to
it's usually a week's break. Sorry.
in order to make the calendar change, because the amelioration that the executive committee or Dr. Bell specifically was trying to put on AS was that we will transcript those Summer 1 classes as spring classes instead. In order to do that, the Chancellor's Office said you can use rules that allow for flexible calendars. It's in the Ed Code. But in order for them to be part of a flexible spring and transcript of spring, they need to start within spring. So now what that means is that they have a start date of May 2nd, but instruction wouldn't begin until May 13th and 12th. Wait, this also means, if you remember, that there was a rationale for switching to the trimester, which is that whether you're taking a beginning of summer, end of summer, or all summer class, you have one registration period, correct?
Yeah.
There will now be a separate registration period for those late spring classes, so the cost argument is gone for the late start. And also, there is now a concern of, well, it won't help students transfer because they've already sent their update forms to the CSUs and UCs. So they're already making decisions based on summer versus spring, so it's too late for this year. Regardless, though, there is a limitation on how many units a student can take in a spring semester, in a single semester.
Oh my gosh.
And so we don't know whether that's going to impact, and in fact I would say it's probably going to. So if students take an 18 or 15 units, they may only be able to take 3.
No. They're
They would
going to have to petition.
Yeah.
We have to have paperwork. I work in A&R. They're going to have to petition since the first thing will already be done. The thought is that those petitions will just be automatically approved because essentially they've completed their 19.2, which is their level, and then they want to enroll if they pick more.
And even
Coming from the Dean of Student Service.
And if anything came out of, if this would have been a good fix despite the other problems, if it had happened in the fall. So AS had been assured, and I want to make it clear, we had been assured time and time again up until the calendar vote, that there would be communication with UCs and CSUs. We will fix it, they're fine, June 30th. Turned out to not be true. And then it's only in the last couple of months, in fact the last month really, that any movement has tried to be made and it's all too late. But now we're ending up with these additional problems because if these spring 2 classes are essentially going to be useless because of the fact we're now transcripting them in a different way, we may actually lose our ability to get our FTES enrollment, which will affect our ability to get our Prop 30 money, which will affect everything else.
That's correct.
Your hand's been up for a while.
I noticed this a long time ago, and this is particularly in regards to this administrative. This is a blanket statement, it's not even a generalization, so I apologize. A large amount of the claims that happened and have come out and that we're now dealing with have been because people have been just accepting the work that has been given by the administration, even though there's no citation, there's no sourcing, there's no proof of research. They're just all claims, and people have been allowing them to essentially get away with making claim after claim after claim without them being expected to research. We're in academia. There's not one thing that I do not source due to fear of plagiarism. And if we just had brought this up, or at least the trustees had thought about this and said, well, I mean, we're still in academia. There's a standard you have of a minimum for your writing, which is if you're going to make a claim, you need to back it up with some research to prove that we can trust you. None of this research was backed up. None of the things that Bell has said has been true. And that's because he has not been doing the research. And it's now showing, and that's what we're basically paying for.
I hear they've been censured.
Yes.
I should have included all executive committee taking reform.
A document on what censorship is had sources.
I was saying about going over the unit requirement for spring. I actually did bring this up to admissions and records and asking for clarification whether it would have to go through written petition as it traditionally has always gone, or would there be some kind of contingency that it would go electronically for approval for continuing students? There is no answer yet. And it's a very difficult thing to tell students. You don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they can, you mean it automatically allow them to go over that?
No.
What I hear from Dina is that it's being considered, and they're asking IT if this is a possibility.
You can't automatically do that because some of those students shouldn't go over it. I mean, there will be cases that they shouldn't be automatically okay.
Thank you. Before everybody leaves, I would just ask that you send me agenda items for the next meeting, send them to me, and also draft of a statement, any opinions or contributions towards the statement.
Do we still have a quorum as we go?
So chair could make a statement as an independent decision.
I heard earlier today that 8 is a quorum. I'm not sure if
Well,
that's right.
this is a big committee.
Is it a quorum? Okay, then I'd like to move to add discussion of the 2013-14 calendar with and without winter to the March 12th special meeting of the calendar committee.
Well, I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Simon, what was that motion?